Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing podcast, where we are gearing up for the festive season. It is the festive season already, and it's the last time we race at Cheltenham this year for New Year's Day. And we're on the new course as well, because it's the international meeting at Cheltenham. I'm pleased to say that Donn McLean and Sam Turner are alongside me to preview the 7 ITV terrestrial races this weekend. The way we're going to do it is we're going to go through Cheltenham first of all, in order that they run, Caspian, Caviar onwards, and then we'll finish up with the 3 at Donny as well. And Sam Turner's got his finger on the pulse as far as decks go. Doesn't look that Donny, but we'll see. We'll see. How are you, Sam? You well?
Yeah, good form. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, just dried out, just thawed out from an afternoon at Warwick. It was beautiful weather in George yesterday. Sun cream was in full operation, as you can imagine.
Did you see how wet Sam got, Don? It was one of those days you were on the sofa thinking, I love racing, but
yeah. I didn't actually see Sam. I saw some racing all right, but I could hear Sam, but I didn't see him, so I didn't get to tell whether he had just come out of a bath or not. But no, it looked pretty visible, all right.
I think Stuart was worse than me. We were doing a wrap, and there was just like raindrops dripping off his nose. He'd left his hat in the car, which didn't look the smartest move to me, if I'm honest.
It's the winter of it, isn't it? It's completely different to last year.
It's good, lads, right? We've seen some horses out earlier this year, some good quality horses than I think we did last year. Just look at the Willie Mullins yard. I think that's a prime example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Willie said that a couple of times now. He was able to get his horses. Not only was he able to run them early because the ground on the racetracks is better or softer, he was able to get them going earlier. So yeah, and like I'd say he still has a couple that he has yet to unleash. I'd say he didn't get to run a lot of his novices or bumper horses last year. So yeah, it's look, he's hit the ground running this year, all right.
Mm-hmm. And even poor Odundaso wanted more rain last week, so you can't please them all. So there you are. Right, let's get stuck into the meat of today's action then. The 155 at Cheltenham, first of all, which we've got 48-hour decks for. We know what's definitely running. It's the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup. It's on the new course. Not as many go forward from the Bet Victor Gold Cup in some ways. I had a few on the list who I wanted to back. I think we've only got 3 with that form represented. And this just in, Riders on the Storm, Sam, first of all, who we assume was going to go off favourite, having gone up nigh on a stone for that win last time and looking very good on first start for the yard, has got an NR next to his name. So that changes the shape of it a bit, doesn't it?
Well, it's a hammer blow for some anti-post punters who backed him into a pretty short price on the back of that Aintree performance. I mean, he did have 1 or 2 questions to answer because he didn't exactly flourish back at the festival behind a Plutard when he was well fancied that day. But he looked a different horse. He looked a revelation at Aintree when beating Cepage in a strong time and with great authority as well, and landing 1 or 2 tidy bets. So that'll be a bit of a hammer blow really for both connections, who look as though they've worked it out brilliantly, really, haven't they? They've kept Count Mirabel for the previous race. He didn't run too badly. But where Riders on the Storm, this has been the target for some time, and to be in the 11th hour withdrawal is a bit of a choker, really. But that does open the race up a little bit. It probably becomes a slightly more competitive betting race with probably a 5 or 6 to 1 the field. Whereas you just felt with Riders on the Storm, he could have gone off a very, very well punted sort of 3 to 1, 5 to 2 chance for this. So it has opened the race up a little bit and makes it a bit more interesting, perhaps.
So we've now got Cepage around about 7.5, Secret Investor 8, Brelanda 10, and then we're into the double figures. Paul Nicholls got a really good record in the race. No surprises to see that he's got 2 of the top 3 in the betting. He won it with a 4-year-old a few years ago, good old Union East. Go on then, Don, you kick us off. What do you like in this and why? Are you looking towards the top of the market or a bit lower down?
Yeah, I'm a big Secret Investor fan. I was last year, and I kind of thought right-handed flat track was what he wanted. That was maybe where he was at his best. But he's won a Chepstow, and he does have good form. He had a good run behind OK Corral last year at Warwick as well. While Warwick, it's not quite as undulating as Cheltenham and the 5 fences on the far side. They're on a flatter part of the track. But I thought his run at Down Royal the last day was very, very good when Real Steel beat him. He and Mengley Khan got into a bit of a battle up front for the lead, and while Paul Townend was never really, he never looked panicked on Real Steel. It just looked like they kind of set it up for him a bit, and he did, like Mengley Khan, fell away quite quickly. And Real Steel Investor, I just thought he stayed on very well. That was over 2.5 miles. That's probably his trip. I mean, the the race at Warwick last January, that was over 3 miles when OK Corral beat him, mark of 150. It's a high enough mark, but I still think he's progressive. Like, he's only run 6 times over fences, and as you say, Sam or Tom, Paul Nichols has a really good record in the race. Harry Cobden is riding really well. He rides. So I think I would have had him maybe in front of Cepage, while at this, Cepage, that was a good run the last day, but he's up £8 for that, for getting beaten by admittedly a very well handicapped horse, the next Tom Taff horse. I just think Secret Investor has more in him. Brelan Da ran a big race the last day. I was a fan of his for the October meeting, but he just couldn't get past Happy Diva, and he's got £5 for that. And coming on here, it's obviously course and distance form. He's obviously a player. Goodman Pat probably has to step forward from his Ascot run, but maybe 3 miles stretched him a wee bit the last day, back to 2.5. That should probably suit him. But no, I just think, I think Secret Investor, there's more in him. I think he's one of the horses that could improve again.
He was the one when in my tracker, Don, Sam, that when he came through as being declared for the race, I got excited, but I always knew that he was going to be single figures. And we were at Wincanton, Sam, when he chased home Bags Group, and the vibes were really strong, I thought, afterwards, from the yard. And I think he did run a really good race, and there was no disgrace in being beaten nigh on 10 legs by Bags Group. And he came good last season. My slight issue, he's sort of my favourite horse in the race, if you like. I think he's got a really good pot in him this year. But in my slight issue with him, and I like the way he raced prominently and jumped better at air at the back end of the season, but I don't know, in the heat of a handicap like this, still early in his career, whether I want to take single figures about him. Paul, I'm a huge fan of the horse.
Yeah, me too. I'm just a little bit worried about the ground as well on an undulating track. I just prefer him a little bit on a flat right-handed track, as we saw at Wincanton or at Kempton. Those sort of venues seem to suit him so well. And I just think he's perhaps taking on 1 or 2 sort of battle-hardened Cheltenham specialists here, Brelan Da, Cepage, those sort of horses. And I just wonder whether it might find him out a little bit on this ground. If it was sort of genuinely good ground, or just ground with a bit of cut in it, then I'd be a little bit more confident. But I think Paul Nichols in the past has been very keen just to keep this lad to a decent surface. So look, I think he's got any amount of improvement to come. I thought it was a terrific first effort, and that was soft enough at Downroll, but it was also right-handed as well. So I've just got him on mind, and I know he won at Air as well, but that was sort of end of season form, and he was thriving at that point, and he hadn't had too busy a spring either, so he perhaps was fresher than most there. So he's shortlisted, but he's not top of it.
I want to ask you both a question, because I'm not sure here. If you have backed Spirit of the Games on his first 2 starts this year, is it worth going in again at now 26.0? Because he hasn't looked the same horse that he did at the back end of last season. But goodness me.
I'll answer that because I'm half guilty. I backed him at his first run in the Bet Victor Gold Cup, and
You're still inconsolable, Don, aren't you?
I'm trying to figure, like, I suppose you can't let him run at 26.0, can you? You have to maybe have a small amount just in case. He's one of those just in case horses at a big price, because like he deserves to be high in the market for the Beck Victor Gold Cup. He was very disappointed there. He was disappointing again behind Old Grangewood and Kalashnikov last time. There comes a point where you just have to draw stumps, and there comes a point when you just have to go, I'm comfortable now if he goes and wins that I haven't backed him. But I think, and that's down to price. If he was a 10-to-1 shot, I'd definitely let him run. A 25-to-1, maybe a little bit on have him on side a wee bit.
What's our view with the cheek pieces with him? Because obviously they were put on at the back end of last year. They took them off last time after he was pulled up at Cheltenham. There wasn't a significant improvement. He only beat one home behind stablemate, didn't he, Old Grangewood at Newbury? So they've left off again today. I wonder whether he might just be creeping back down into the mid-140s for a spring campaign with the cheek pieces back on, perhaps.
Yeah, I quite like that. Yeah, I see what you mean. Harry Skelton is on t'other one.
Yeah, that looks the plan, doesn't it, the other one?
Yeah. But I can see why people might say, I'm not letting him run now at this.
No.
But he was so poor in the Bet Victor Gold Cup. Like, he just he didn't run his race at all, and he had his cheap pieces on then. I know cheap pieces were off last time, so yeah, maybe come down the handicap a little bit, but yeah, he's a horse that, look, he's a talented horse.
More. We've had one more question in. It's from, he's on his day off, DC.
Oh, he can't leave it alone, can he?
He's non-stop, isn't he? He's non-stop. You can imagine him, you know, I'm just nipping out to the shops, love. Just nipping down the road to the shops. In we go, straight down the bookies.
Tell him to go and get his hair cut again. Keep himself busy.
Does Newcastle have any chance of the 155? Yes, because, I mean, his price will tell you that. What is he? Just into the double figures. Trip is the question, I suppose. What do we think, Sam? Trip-wise for Clondalk? Yeah,
worried about that, and I'd rather see him as a long-term grand annual project. I know there's no good just looking 3 months in advance all the time, but that looks his race of the season for me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I wouldn't mind seeing him rack up a few runs this year, because that can often be a race, that grand annual, where you want to have a few runs under your belt that season and perhaps previously as well. Experience counts a bit for that. Fair enough. I'm gonna go for one horse that I will put a bit of money on is Lawler. First time cheap pieces. I think this trip will really suit. He's won over the course before. I know the yard aren't exactly, you know, having the best time of it, but they're not running a lot of horses with great chances at the moment. And I you know, at 17.0, I won't go big, but he's one of those horses that off a mark of 149, I can make a case that he's a well-treated horse in handicap company over a trip that will suit. Yeah,
I see that. Totally see that.
Handicapper hasn't been overly lenient with him, has he? He's only dropped him a couple of pounds. I mean, he's been out of form for a couple of runs now, and yeah, I mean, look, you can see that he's probably 150 rated horse, that type of horse. But, and you know, maybe the cheap pieces, that's going to elicit improvement back. And again, we know he's a talented novice from last year, but he's another one that requires a decent leap of faith, I think.
Yeah, he does, but he's that sort of price. And he's, you know, his last 3 runs before Exeter have been in Grade 1, so I thought he shaped okay at Exeter. It wasn't.
It's a Grade 2, and Aidan Coleman might just spark a bit of a revival as well, just to change your hands on him. So
Donn, Secret Investor, you've mentioned. I'm going to give Lawler a bit of support. I'll swerve Spirit of the Games one last time. Sam, anything else from you?
I like Cepage, I must admit. I thought the run behind Froden in this last year was a tremendous effort, really, considering he'd been off the track for so long. Obviously, it's the riders on the storm form line from Aintree, providing he can build on that. And he's had 5 weeks to recover. Stable continues in great form. He would be my #1 pick, I think. I'm very, very fearful right at the foot of the weights on the skeleton plot. I think that knocked that Fuse, if that's how you pronounce it. The second to Al Dancer reads very well, doesn't it, off a mark at 131. He didn't do much at Warwick last time, but I've got a feeling that was a run to get the 3rd run in the bank. And I think he looks as though he wants 2.5 on a lot of his hurdle form. He needed that 2.5 miles, and he's also got that bit of experience around Cheltenham chasing home Al Dancer as well. So that looked at sort of, you know, running a graded race or running a very nice novice chase, and then just start to work away and get a handicap mark. And I think off 131 of 10-2 with Harry Skelton at the foot of the weights, if he's man enough for it, I think he's a big player.
Kick up to 230.
One other horse worth mentioning in that is Robin DeForest. Willie Mullins sends over Robin DeForest. We haven't seen him since he chased home Burrows Saint in the Hugh McMahon race at Limerick. So and Burrows Saint then went on and won the Irish Grand National on his next run. So, and look, he was well enough beaten by Burrows Saint in the end, but it was still a decent run. He hasn't run since, and it's not like Willie Mullins to send a horse over for a handicap chase at Cheltenham at this meeting anyway. So he's just one worth keeping an eye on. He's kind of lightly racing. He had a couple of runs last year, and he's old enough, but at the same time, that was a big run and on a line through Burrows Saint. You know, 148, a mark of 148 is more than reasonable, I would have thought.
And about 15.0 as well for that. James Bowen on board, who in the 230, I think James is on Nicky Henderson's Val Tour. Yes, indeed, who doesn't head the betting. But he's rated 148 as a 10-year-old popping into this novices hurdle. He's the horse, which, lads, I was desperate for them to not go the national route and run in the Albert Bartlett last year. It didn't happen. I thought he had a lovely profile for that. Champagne Well heads the betting. I suppose unsurprising given that Time Hill form. Is that Time Hill form the best novice hurdle form or the best staying novice hurdle form we've seen so far this year, Sam?
This side of the water, I think it's right up there. And the fact that he's had a couple of spins around Cheltenham as well. He looked for all the world like he wanted to step up in trip last time as well. He was just tapped the toe turning in, given a really wide ride and a wise ride by Paddy Brennan, who tried to steer the wide course and look for the better ground. And just as the pace quickened, he was just flat-footed and just couldn't go with them, and then stayed on pretty gamely all the way to the line. I think 3 miles will suit him ideally. I like the fact he's got good experience around here as well. He beat Brave Blue, good staying performance that day in that early season fixture. And I think Time Hill is a very, very talented novice, probably one of the best we've got on show at the moment. So I think Champagne Well just gets the vote for me over the Skelton runner, who I was quite taken with at Southwell, the Mulcair. I thought he did well to beat JPEG that day, and that form's been enhanced since.
He's about 4.33 is Champagne Well, and the Mulcair and Valtor both about 6.0. From what Sam was saying, moving on to my opinion, Donn, I think Valtor he's rated high enough, and I know that they campaigned him as a chaser last year. He didn't do much for his mark when he won off 148 and went up to 160 off the back of Ascot. But look, he was pretty good value last time, and he was well supported in the market to go and do the business. But I quite like him being campaigned in this division. If I was going to back one, and I might just wait and see how it reacts to the top of the market. If Champagne Well comes in and Valtor gets any bigger, I'd be very interested in backing it. But I'd be coming down on his side of the fence personally. Donn, what do you think?
Yeah, that was an incredible performance at Ascot, wasn't it? I mean, it was a 33-1 shot. He took everybody by surprise. And what was it, 9 then? Yeah, 10 now. And I suppose he got a massive hike for that up to 160, which he merited. Like the ease with which he won that race, he merited a hike of that type of magnitude. And he's whatever he is, 160. Maybe he's come down a couple of pounds over fences since then. He's 148 over hurdles, which puts him right up there. Like he's 7 pounds higher than Champagne Well. I do agree with Sam. I think Champagne Well, he's the kind of progressive horse. He's the typical novice hurdler who's improving. His win at the first meeting was very good, and then the last day, exactly as Sam said, I just thought he got outpaced when Time Hill quickened and stayed on. So the step up and trip to 3 miles is a positive for him. For all that, he was well beaten by Champ in the Sefton hurdle last season. He does stay 3 miles. We know that he'll probably improve for stepping up from 2 miles 5 to 3. He handles soft ground as well. So yeah, there's plenty about him. But there are other unexposed types in there. Valtor's not exactly unexposed. For all that, you can argue his case given his rating over hurdles. But no, Champagne Well, I just thought the last day he was crying out for a step up and trip, and he gets it.
Yeah, it's easy to argue. Kim Bailey's horse didn't get happy-go-lucky round, perhaps a shade disappointingly at Sandown. He ran okay. It was very testing ground then, so I'd sort of half forgive anything on those 2 days at Sandown, a slightly disappointing effort perhaps. But you lads are pretty solid on Champagne Well. I'd be inclined to take you on with Valtor, but it wouldn't be unloading the wallet, I have to say. Anything else to say on this race, gang?
No, I'm done. I mean, I suppose the pace angle will come from something like Igor, who was highly impressive, really, at Ascot. He's got to prove he can do it this way round. Obviously, Redford Road is well touted. He's got a couple of lengths to find with Valtor. He might well do that this way round. So it's a really interesting race and hard to be dogmatic about one of them. So I think perhaps that's why we've started with Champagne Well a bit.
Does the Nichols horse go, Sam? San Javier, the unknown quantity?
I'll find out for you.
Sam's got his pulse here. Because he's...
Yes, that runs with David riding.
Yeah. David Maxwell, that is. He's just... he's one of those I wouldn't touch necessarily at the prices. I'm just interested to see how he goes. Those David Maxwell horses, I still think they can be underestimated. He could be an interesting runner.
He's rated 140 himself, isn't he?
Say again?
He's rated 140 himself, really, from what he's done over fences in France. So he's not of inconsiderable ability.
The feature for many is the Grade 2 International Hurdle, 305 this is, and Pentland Hills heads the betting. that is no great surprise. We're looking forward to seeing the Triumph winner, the Grade 1 winner, Aintree, back. Chibello for Team Skelton is next in, a couple of points bigger. Call Me Lord, around about 5.0. Elixir de Nuts, he's back, having won at this meeting last year and at the November meeting as well, 7.0. I think we had a question in on this, so I wonder if we come in with that, or perhaps I'll just kick off first of all with what you fancy, Donn, in the race.
Yeah, look, it's great that Pentland Hills is back. This has been his target for a little while. In fairness to Nicky Henderson, he did mention that this is the race that's going to bring him back. A 4-year-old taking on the older horses, that's always a big one for me. Although this year the 4-year-olds are coming to the fore, aren't they? You know, maybe other like Bouvardere getting beaten and probably out for the season. The mares are coming into it as well. Maybe, you know, the novices, maybe talk about stepping novices up in grade, but the 4-year-olds from last year, they're the ones that are, you know, they're the three of them, the three main ones from last year. They're quite prominent in the betting for the Champion Hurdle. But Pentland Hills, I suppose he's the leader as the Triumph Hurdle winner and the Anniversary Hurdle winner. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he gets on. I wouldn't be backing him now at 5-4 or anything like it. I think Elixir de Nuts that you mentioned, Tom, he's a very interesting horse. He's another one who he's had his seasonal return delayed, and we haven't seen him since January, actually, since he won the Tolworth Hurdle. Obviously, that race has worked out well. He's got form at Cheltenham as well. He was kind of an underrated horse for a lot of last season. He kept on going and running well. When he was beaten by Thomas Darby at the October meeting, I thought that was underrated, and he's just one of those dour, gutsy horses who keeps on finding, and I think the more rain, the better for him as well.
It does look that way, doesn't it? Where are you, Sam, with Elixir de Nuts? Is he a horse that you'd want to side with on reappearance, or is he a horse you'd want to see with a run behind him this season?
I wonder whether he was underrated because everyone just viewed him as a bit of a one-trick pony. You know, he just bounced out, made the running, and everyone felt that, you know, come a championship race, he was going to be vulnerable, and perhaps overthought it really, because we did see a horse make all in the Supreme last year, pretty much. So it's great to have him back. He adds a good bit of depth to the race, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was pretty fit, burst off the shelf, and gave the favourite, you know, plenty to think of. I am a big Pentland Hills fan. I thought he compacted so much into such a short period of time last year. His education was pretty rapid, wasn't it, over hurdles? Just 3 starts from, you know, the 25th of February through to Aintree, and look at some of the horses he beat. He trounced Curse-Sublime in this race. Okay, we know about the ill-fated Sir Eric, but it was still a very good performance on only his second run over hurdles, and then beat Fakir Duderie at Aintree. You know, really gutsed it out in really game and genuine fashion. The thing about this lad is he's been very experienced off the flat. I think he had 14, 15 career runs. 11 already on the flat. So he's an old school Triumph Hurdle winner, really, not like the new type that we get through. You know, most of the Triumph Hurdles we see now are young horses that come over from France who got a couple of runs under their belt, or we don't see many of these type of horses with plenty of experience on the flat. It's almost going back to yesteryear, really. So when he's trying to mix it with these older hurdlers, I'm not so concerned about Pentland Hills sort of adapting to that and the test and the examination that provides with, you know, with all that experience in the bank from the flat, and the fact that he's really had to go to the world to dig deep to win races over 1.5 miles or 1.3 miles, wherever. So I wouldn't be too concerned about him this year, and he's in the hands of a master as well. I think there's a lot more to come from him. I mean, I saw a couple of the performances last year. You know, the Plumpton one where he fled around that track, and the circuit time he did was absolutely astonishing. The Cheltenham figure was very good, and the Aintree one was just as good as anything that he'd achieved previous to that. So very much on the upgrade, and his improvement curve is soaring. So I'll stick with him. Like Donn says, I wouldn't want to back him too short in this, because you've got Chibello, who runs the track particularly well, the Patriot, who's well regarded and always seems to be quite well punted for these types of races. So I wouldn't want to take a very thin price first time out, but I do think he'll win.
It's a race as well in which 4-year-olds do well. I mean, I know Champion Hurdle, we know the record that they have in that. It's very poor until last year, really. But like in this race, Grandaway won it. Old Guard won it. So they're not the Triumph Hurdle winners. They're not the top juveniles even that have come on and won this. That's 2 in the last 10 years. So, you know, you can easily argue that Pentland Hills was the best juvenile from last season. And it's you can understand why he's favoured all right. But I think at the price, for me anyway, you want to go and see him against the older horse before you take that type of price about him against them.
And Tom, this Australian Raider, won't be long before you're, sort of engineering a this racing life and going out to the stable of C. Mayer and D. Eustace to do a little bit of a profile piece with it.
It's only right. It's only right we do that.
We've got to embrace them, haven't we? These long distance travellers, we've got to embrace them.
I think I'd want to acclimatise it. You can't go out there for less than a couple of weeks.
No, needs 3, doesn't it? With a little stop off in Dubai, perhaps something like that.
I've got it right. Big Blue before the champion. Not that he's going to run the champion hurdle before Cheltenham. Just ready for the Sydney Carnival, their autumn carnival over this. Perfect.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll be muting that to the power brokers at Racing TV.
Quite right. Can I make a request from you as well, Sam? Every time you refer to Fakir Duderi, you just say the Arkle winner. Is that all right?
Okay, yeah, we'll just call him the Arkle winner from now on. We'll anoint him already, shall we? Do you think the bookmakers will do that as well?
It's only fair. We got a question. Lewis says, on Penton Hills, can 4-year-olds really cut it against the older hurdlers?
Yes, they can.
It's that age-old thing, isn't it? I had a wonderful moment with Nicky Henderson at Wincanton where he was talking about, it was wonderful, where he was talking about the horse that won the Elite, Fusa Raffles. And he said, well, can 4 now 5-year-olds or rising 5-year-olds really cut it against the older horses? He said, I'm not sure that it hasn't happened for a while. And I was like, last year, Nicky, last year. Do you correct them? I did, but you do, right?
Well, maybe the Malbec was particularly strong that day. You just don't know, do you?
It was early day-ish.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Malbec was quite strong that day. But, those of us of an advancing age, Tom, and this will come to you eventually once your good looks wither and your hair, your mane starts to drop out like the rest of us. These sort of things, the very recent things do escape you very, very easily. And it's the stuff 20 years ago that you tend to remember. So just bear that in mind when you're just criticising your elders. Not
criticising at all. Not criticising. I felt awkward. Where do we stand on it then? Where do we stand on this thing? Which, look, Nicky Henderson's referred to it a few times before, and particularly talking about some of his 4 rising 5-year-olds carrying top weight coming to handicaps, etc. The last season's juveniles. Where are you with it, Don? Is it ever a concern for you?
It absolutely is. I tend to not mind them really in handicaps. It's more when they go into Grade 1 races or even Grade 2 races against their elders. Like, as for Dallin, he was only the 2nd juvenile champion hurdle winner since CU then. Speaking of Nicky Henderson, in 1985, won the first of his 3. And I know Cashett won as a 4-year-old. Espoir Dallin, it was a kind of a strange champion hurdle last year, and Espoir Dallin, it just shows you how much we miss him. But like he could have been a very, very good, and he was a very good champion hurdle winner, but he could have proven himself to be an outstanding champion hurdle winner in the course of time. We'll never know. But I do worry about them. I mean, there's some statistics that don't have any backbone, that you kind of go, well, there's no real basis for that. There's no real reason why that should happen, but there is a reason why a young horse might struggle in a champion hurdle, and I think it's definitely a factor. But this year, just mentioning, like some of the champion hurdle pictures got Penton Hills, Fusfield Raffles, Curse Sublime, who was so impressive winning at Don Royal. So they're players in the champion hurdle market at the moment. But I think that I'd err on the side of needing them to go and prove it. I just think it is a big ask. I think those statistics are significant, and it is a big ask asking them to go and step up and take on their elders.
I think it's a really interesting champion hurdle division this year, because the 3 from last year, the 2 mares and Bouvardere, who were fighting out for favouritism, they're not going to run in the champion hurdle this year. Well, I don't think. Let Apple's Jade, we'll see. But so it's interesting. Perhaps there is a changing of the guard, and many people will point to Defi de Searle and say, well, look, his 5-year-old season was a bit of a disaster. But then the yard had a tricky year. So, but I think there is definitely some merit behind it. But this could be the year where one of them really steps up. I just wanted to make another point on. I agree with you, lads. I think this is Pentland Hills for the taking. I just wonder if Elixir could be a horse to have a look at in the run. If he goes off at 7.0, I dare say that if he's still in front, it'll be a fair bit shorter than that.
I wouldn't have thought Gumball would be hassling for the lead.
Yeah,
the same connections. So there is every chance that he might well get a solo, isn't there?
He's a horse who finds for pressure, though, isn't he? Like I'm not sure what his in-running prices are, Sam. Maybe you have a better handle on that generally. But I think he doesn't travel as like for an in-running play. You want a horse that travels well in front. I think he needs a little bit of stoke and long. I think he finds. I actually think he might trade at a biggish price in running, even if he is in front, because he might come under pressure on the run down the hill and then stay on the ground, but then race fitness is going to come into it. So it's a tricky one to know how to play. I do think he'll run well, though. I think he'll run well for a long way, and I just think he's generally an underrated horse.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the 340. This closes off our Cheltenham preview. This is the Mayor's Handicap Hurdle. I'll kick straight off with this if I can and say that Misty Bloom looks a fair old price for me, around about 9.0. She went up a fair hike for beating Amida Sivler at Wincanton. That was when Ben Jones was riding. I know Adam Wedge takes over, but she was really well supported that day. And Emma Lavelle was afterwards she was sort of very, I'm really surprised. And I'm sure she was, but I thought she was pretty good value for that. And I understand the hike, but she's very progressive. And, she was a last time out winner who was mighty impressive, and she's sort of fifth in the betting here. So based upon that, I know this is tougher, but I was a little bit surprised about the price, and I will support her at that sort of price, Misty Bloom. Sam?
Yeah, I think the market will revolve around Dame de Compagnon, wouldn't it? Who was fifth in the Great Wood. Looked as though the run would certainly bring her on. I think she'd be about 4.0, 4.5, something like that. I'll probably just have a couple of small bets in this race if I do play at all. I thought Lust for Glory ran really well against a bit of a pace bias at Ascot, and she chased home Not So Sleepy, who I'm not saying for a minute that he was sort of advantaged by being off and away, but she wasn't knocked about, and she looked for all the world like 2.5 would bring about further improvement. I just wondered whether the Connections had their eye on this race a little bit. The Henderson team don't mind running more than one of these mares in a race. We saw it the other day at with 2 or 3 novices or 2 or 3 handicap hurdlers finishing 1, 2, 3 at Newbury. So they're not concerned about if they're in different colours. They're quite happy to run them. So I think she's a fair price at about 9.0. I do think there's a bit more to come from Meggie Yates as well. I don't think she got home last time at Haydock in that Stony Mountain race. Ruth's horses weren't in great form then, but in the next 2 or 3 weeks they start. The whistle's blowing. Don must be pushing all the chips in.
What colour yellow one is it?
Is it a checkered flag or a yellow one, Don? Please, just let me know. I haven't read the rules.
No idea.
But Meggie Yates would be the other one I'd be interested in. I think dropping back to 2.5 for her is an interesting one. And Ruth wouldn't bring too many horses south, and when she did, we saw last week with Waiting Patiently, they do tend to run well. So I thought a double figure price for Meggie Yates was interesting as well.
Don, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I can understand why Dan the Company is favourite. She ran well the last day in the Greatwood Hurdle, and off the same mark now, so that's reasonable as the first run. So you can legitimately expect that she'll improve from that. I thought Indefatigable the last day at Weatherby, she ran a big race. She was under pressure from a long way out, over 2 miles. She was crying out for Step Up and Trip. For all that Lady Buttons, the winner, maybe didn't really enhance it in the Fighting Fifth Hurdle, but we know that she's a good mare, and Indefatigable only went down by about 2 lengths in the end, but she was a wee bit flattered by that. Lady Buttons kind of eased up, but she just, it didn't look like she was going to get anywhere near her on the run down the back straight. She was under pressure early. So yeah, I think the step up to 2.5 and the switch to a stiffer track, that'll suit her. She handles soft ground well. So yeah, I can see on the back of what looked like a disappointing run last time, I think there are reasons for thinking that she'll do a lot better.
Yeah, last win came with this course and distance. I can see that. Anything to add to this, or should we kick on to Donny Gang?
Let's go for Donny.
Donny Go, which is the 210. Three-runner race. It's the December Novices Chase. And look, we've got some lovely horses in it, but it's where do you stand on Sam Spinner? Does he merit being 2.25 or not? I suppose that's a question for many. He's 2 from 2 over fences, and the one on first start over fences really didn't look as though it was going to happen. We've had a question in. How do you foresee Sam Spinner's future? I read that wrong. Over fences. It was over hurdles. I think that's a fair question. My opinion is, well, he's not rated as high as he was over hurdles yet, and he still doesn't jump for me. I don't think he's built like a chaser, and he doesn't jump for me in the. I completely understand why he did on his first start what he did at Wetherby, because it was too short for him and he stayed on to win. He was better last time, albeit early he was a bit scratchy. But in a larger field, graded race, he's just, for me, he's not going to cut it personally. He might well win here. I think he probably will win here in this three-runner race. But up against some horses who like to bowl along out in front, I just think it might put too much pressure on his jumping. And so the answer for me is, to that question, is no, he can't quite. He won't be ever rated as high as he was over hurdles, over fences. Lads?
I agree with most of that, Tom. Sorry, Tom. Yeah, I agree with all you said in the beginning. I don't think he'll be as good over fences as he was over hurdles, especially in his pomp over hurdles. Like when he was good over hurdles, he used to have a real cut at his hurdles. He'd fly his hurdles. He's not like that over fences. He's a small. Well, it looks to me like a smallish horse. I've never seen him in the flesh, but he looks small.
Yeah.
Over fences, and yeah, I think he might struggle. And even tomorrow at Doncaster, I think Windsor Avenue, as you said, bowling along in front, jumping well. I think he could put him under pressure. And you talk about betting and running. However it pans out, I'd say Windsor Avenue will trade a lot shorter in running than his SP, and Sam Spinner will probably trade a bit bigger in running than his SP. And I can see Windsor Avenue lasting the whole way. I think Sam Spinner, he's a hurdler for me, a kind of a cat-like hurdler, and going over fences, I think he struggles.
Sam?
Yeah, I see that totally. I think Sam Spinner's quite careful, isn't he? I think he's nimble. You know, for a horse that hasn't got tons of scope, I think he uses himself pretty well. But if you watch just those jumps in the straight last time at Wetherby, he's always just looking after himself a little bit. But then once he gets, you know, if he's level with anything after the last, then you're in trouble. But you've got to win your race out in the country for me, and I think Windsor Avenue might do that at Doncaster. He's a different type of model altogether. He's a big, robust, and he's quite an exuberant jumper as well. He does take a little bit of a chance occasionally, but he looks for every fence, whereas Sam Spinner's looking for every fence and thinking, can I just put a short one in and just look after myself a bit? You know, I'm not saying he's a reluctant chaser, but he just doesn't look a natural chaser, whereas I think Windsor Avenue, given a bit more time, experience, he could make up into a really high-class chaser. So I'm just going to give him the nod tomorrow.
Does Sam Spinner not just outstay Windsor Avenue if he's still in there pitching 2 out?
Yeah, that's a scenario, definitely. I suppose I mean, the way he powered up the hill at Carlisle, I don't see 3 miles around Doncaster being an issue for him. I think he has got speed. I think Brian Ellison's on record as saying he's not short of speed, but just think he's just a big powerhouse of a horse, and I think he will be eventually, once their respective careers come to an end. I think he will have a higher chase rating than Sam Spinner, perhaps. But you know, I think it's difficult to knock Sam Spinner. He's still learning on the game, and you know, he still won both of his races by 3 lengths and 4 lengths respectively. He's beaten 2 Skelton horses, one which some people think is being lined up for a handicap, you know, in the spring. And Ardlethan is a very reasonable horse of his own right. So there's nothing wrong with the performances, and he hasn't fallen. And he hasn't really looked like falling much. He's been a bit hesitant and perhaps stuttered into 1 or 2, but he's pretty clever.
That's it. Like, sorry.
No, go on, Dom.
Yeah, like that's it. That's the key point, Sam. As you say, he never looks like falling. He doesn't look like it, but that's nearly because he's minding himself a little bit. And if he meets one on the stride, he's fine. If he's not meeting one on the stride, he's going to lose ground. And Windsor Avenue he could improve a fair bit now over fences. He's on a lovely trajectory. He's got a lovely style, lovely way of moving. The trip is a little bit of a worry, but as you say, Sam, 2.5 miles at Carlisle on soft ground, that takes a fair bit of getting. You know, it's probable that Sam Spinner will be under pressure in the home, and the fences at Doncaster, they do come up quite quickly, and there are plenty of them in the straight as well, which will probably help Windsor Avenue. So look for the low sun. If there's a low sun, Sam Spinner's your man.
That's very true. Look out. I think there's a chance that he goes off second fav, Sam Spinner, and he does get to a price where you go, hang on a second. Then that's the sort of betting angle I'll be looking for. If he doesn't ease out, I won't back him. Are you having a bet in the race, lads? Either the two of you? Would you at the moment?
No, I'll probably just watch it. I don't see any point.
I think there is an in-running angle though. I think it, and this might influence Windsor Avenue's starting price as well. People wanting to back him before the off and then trade out in running, because I do think that he'll trade out shorter in running.
Interesting. The last two, I'm not sure we're going to spend too long on, but let's see. The 245 at Doncaster is a Grade 2 juvenile hurdle. The newcomer, Tombe du Ciel, James Reevely rides. That's interesting. First start for Nicky Henderson in these colours, and unsurprisingly heads the betting. But Lord Lamington, I thought, was pretty good over hurdles last time when beating Zoffi. He's next in. Tombe du Ciel around about 3.5, and a couple of points bigger is Lord Lamington. Paseo for Oliver Sherwood 9.0. Then we're into the double figures. This isn't because Tombe du Ciel heads the betting, and at that sort of price, I can't make him an obvious take on job because of who he represents, but equally I couldn't back him, so I couldn't at this stage have a bet in the race. Anybody got a firm betting opinion?
No, it's an unknown.
Not a firm betting opinion as such. Other to say, Don McCain had a couple of horses in this race, and he's relied on Navajo Pass. I think that other nice juvenile that won at Wetherby was also in the race, and Navajo Pass was a bit unlucky. He just dossed in front at Newcastle and got nailed on the line by Tavis, didn't he, last time? But the Tombe du Ciel form lines, they do stack up pretty well. I think the horse that beat her at Auteuil in the spring at April, the middle of her performances, came out and won a listed hurdle afterwards. And it's a race that they've used as a stepping stone for We Have a Dream and Peace & Co in past times as well. And our colleague on Racing TV, Mark Howard, who produced that excellent book, has done a couple of pieces on Tombe du Ciel, and one of which is with James Reevely, where he's managed to speak to James about all the lines of the juvenile form in France, and James is very complimentary about this filly. And I think it's interesting that it's ended up in the hands of Isaac Swade and Simon Menier, and James is riding it. So I wonder whether there is a little bit of a link there, a correlation between James's complimentary nature towards her and the fact that she's ended up with these connections. So maybe he's put her up to them as a possible purchase, but. With him coming over as well, that's a nice line, I think, and I wouldn't imagine he'd be coming over just for his health and just to taste it, draw in a little bit of the Yorkshire air, so to speak.
Yeah, that book you mentioned is One Jump Ahead, and it is excellent. And any horse that's mentioned is well worth paying attention to. And I can understand there are going to be people out there who go, "This is a good thing." You look at the likes of Peace & Co. We Have a Dream. We've won it in these colours before. And she could be very special, but just for me at that price isn't the sort of thing I get stuck into. Do you have anything to add on the race, Don?
No, it's not. It's a no bet race for me for sure. Definitely, she's a very interesting filly. Watch her run. I definitely couldn't back her. You couldn't be against her given the strength of the. I don't obviously have a handle on the French form. Sam seems to have a good handle on that, but given her connection. But it's a good point that you make. But given her connections and the fact that she's been well touted, you couldn't be against her really. Sacco and Vanzetti, he was in the race. John Quealy's horse, the form of his run at Pakistan is working out well. He's not in it. He's entered elsewhere, so maybe he's entered in the juvenile hurdle at Cheltenham as well. So he's an interesting horse, and if he goes there, then maybe keep an eye on him. But no, not for this race. This is a race for watching.
Last up is the 320. We've just got 4 in this. It's a handicap chase over 3 miles. If I may lead off with Treacle Tart, 1 or 2 in the race for Charlie Longsdon. She's a previous course and distance winner. I think she's a fair price in a 4-runner race. But I might just want to see her jump off and get a lead. But she slipped last time and she was well beaten in the end, having won on reappearance. I also think she wants a little bit of time between her races, and she's had a bit more time. She's had 57 days. I think that could be a good thing. I thought she's a big. I know it's a 4-runner race, but. And I'm not talking about getting stuck into in the place market or anything like that. But 9.0 I thought was fair enough for Treacle Tart. What about you lads?
Cream or ice cream, Tom?
Go on.
With your Treacle Tart.
Oh, I like.
Would you go cream or ice cream?
Oh, I would go. I would always go cream. I'm not an ice cream lover, Sam.
No, me neither. Always cream all the way, innit?
Doesn't do it for me. Just doesn't. Yeah, it's not for me. But I'm with Treacle Tart. One of pairs in the race.
Yeah. What about My Old Gold, who beat her 4 lengths in that listed Perth race?
Yeah, I get you, but
I mean, I should stick with My Old Gold, really, shouldn't I?
Is that where are you going to back My Old Gold? Do you think?
Probably. I usually do. It hasn't been a particularly successful strategy up to date. I mean, she won a couple. I think at My Old Gold, but we got beat at some very thin prices as well when looking likely to win, which does resonate with the Wolves fan.
You're a fan of hers. She's a fair bit shorter. She's 4.5. Donn?
I don't know. Is Oscar De Brea, is he going in this, or he's out? Is he?
We got Cloth Cap, My Old Gold, Treacle Tart, and Forth Bridge. The 4.
No, look, it's a 4-horse race. Look, you can see why Cloth Cap is favourite, but no bet race. I was interested in Oscar De Brea wherever he goes, but he's not in this. I didn't know he was out, but pity. And pity's cut up a bit because there was a good entry for it. 4 horses. It's cut up a fair bit.
It really has cut up, hasn't it?
It's a 0 to 150 with a bit of cut in the ground. On a good track like Doncaster. I don't know what the prize money's like, but it's absolutely amazing that there's only 4 in it. I mean, Cloth Cap has been, well, pretty scarce really this season. He's been entered up in a number of decent races and been, late withdrawals or not declared for 1 or 2 pretty decent races. And he ran really well behind Militarian last time, which was obviously the shock winner of that Ascot handicap. But I think getting back on a bit of good ground, obviously he was placed in the Scottish National, getting back on a left-handed track on some decent ground will suit him ideally. I do think he's capable of leaving behind a mark of 136. So who knows? It looks a tricky little race for me.
Yeah, it's 15.5 grand to the winner.
He probably needs further than 3 miles on good soft ground, a 4-horse race where they won't go a great pace. Because running the Scottish National was a massive run. And maybe a step up in trip. Maybe if he, if you're thinking of him for the future, you kind of want him not to win tomorrow, and then a longer trip, a bigger field, more testing track, maybe, or a combination of two of those 3 might suit him better. But at the same time, he's probably the right favourite for this.
The excitement for the 320 at Doncaster is brimming,
There's no bounds.
Right, let's have some long shots first of all. This is the most fancied long shot. It's all because you can have £10 on it effectively with the current sign-up offer at Matchbook. You need to go to offer.matchbook.com for that. And the way it works is it's a £10 bonus if your first bet loses. Offer.matchbook.com for more on that. Sam Turner can kick us off with the best long shot.
What price constitutes a long shot, Tom?
Walking the Moon was long enough at 10.0 last week, so that was long enough.
Was it? Okay, so double figures. We're talking double figures, are we?
It's a fair question.
Or slightly, double figures. Slightly lower.
Because, some people 5 to 2 would be a fairly tasty price, wouldn't it? So, it's each to their own. I'll go with something like, I don't know, Meggie Yates, perhaps. I think she'll be sort of 12, 14, something like that in that mares race. And at least by having it the last race on the card, you keep the excitement going, Tom, which I'm always keen to do.
In the last at Cheltenham, I'll go for Lawler in the Caspian Caviar, who is into double figures. Lawler for me in the Caspian Caviar with cheek pieces first time. Don McLean?
I'll go for... thinking Elixir de Nuts, but he's probably too short at 7.0 or 8.0. I'll go for Indefatigable in the mares race, stepping up in trip.
Fair enough. That again, the last at Cheltenham, and then as far as the best bet goes, Best bet. No, there's no price restrictions here. Whatever you think is the best bet, perhaps the best value on the card. Let's go in the same order. Sam, who's your best bet on Saturday afternoon between Cheltenham and Donny?
Cepage, win and place.
And that is in the Caspian Caviar.
155 Cepage, top horse.
I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Mare's Race, even though you two have got it for your.
Oh, 3 darts at the same race.
Well, this is the best bet. I think it was a big price. I think she digs deep. She's progressive. I'm looking forward to Misty Bloom running in the last at Cheltenham. There you go, Don.
I'll stick with Secret Investor. Despite attempts to dissuade me earlier, about an hour ago. Yeah, I just think he's at 8.0, 7.0. I think, you know, I'll take the Cheltenham tough handicap risk. I think it's worth the risk at the price.
I want to say that Sam and we are very positive about Secret Investor as a horse. Like, if he wins, I'll be delighted because I've spent a lot of last year championing him, but I won't be. No,
I'm the same.
Track here, Tom. Hang on a sec. There we go.
That was a big factor.
Last year, I definitely worried about his robustness for a test like this, but I thought his seasonal debut run at Down Royal was another step forward. I think he can be marked up a fair bit on that run. I know it's only a 4-horse race, and he still has that question to answer, but he's a horse who threatened to improve last season. I think he still has that threat to improve based on his Down Royal run. So I just think he's a little bit underrated.
I hear you. Good stuff. Sam, Don, thank you very much indeed. That's it for our Saturday preview, all the terrestrial, all the ITV races between Cheltenham and Doncaster. We're back for a busy old festive period. We'll be getting stuck into the Boxing Day action, the 27th as well. And then we'll have another pod hot on the heels of that, looking ahead to the following weekend. And that's all before the new year. So lots to look forward to. Cheers, Sam. Cheers, Don.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks, Sam.
To those of you at home for watching. Bye for now.